British concert pianist Leon McCawley won first prize at the International Beethoven competition in Vienna in 1993 and second prize at the International Leeds piano competition. And since then he's developed a very impressive career, playing all around the world with all the major orchestras and conductors. So I'm delighted that he's taken time today to join me here at the Royal College of Music for a classical conversation. Well, welcome, Leon.
Thank you, Melanie. Great to be with you today.
Oh, it's lovely talking to you. I'm going to start by asking you all about your musical education. So, how did you start playing the piano and why did you start? And do you come from a musical family?
I don't come from a musical family, but my parents had the good sense to purchase a piano for all of us. I have 3 sisters, so we all learned growing up. But I think really the first musical influence came from my local piano teacher, and she noticed my talent.
Yes.
But then realised that I needed to go to a specialist music school because she noticed that she was slightly limited as far as her teaching capacity was. And also, I come from a small village in Cheshire called Croft, and I was very influenced by the education there at my local primary school. We had lots of music going on. I played the recorder, also a bit of guitar, I remember. And it was through that experience I played the organ for the local church, for all our carol concerts, nativity plays. It was very good practice for the future. I look back now and think this was probably. I talk a lot about my education at Cheetham School of Music in the Royal Northern College when I work later on, but right from the word go, that sort of experience, it wasn't on any high level, but it gave me. In a way, that was my first sort of performing experience, even though it was very different to what I do now.
Sure.
Also singing in the choir.
Yes.
Helped my harmonic awareness.
Yes, all these things.
And all those small things that nowadays in primary schools there isn't so much music available for young children. And my little school, in the local village, there was so much going on. And my parents didn't have any knowledge about where this talented young son, how he would develop, but they took advice from the local teacher, and she then said to them that Leon must go to a better school. And as luck would have it, we lived near Manchester, and there were lots of possibilities there to go to further my education, the junior or northern, and then Cheetham School of Music.
So which teacher do you think then developed you as a pianist? Probably the best, or who you felt was the most inspirational teacher?
Yes, well from that, from going on to the Junior Royal Northern, I worked with Heather Say-Lipkin, who really built all the foundations for my future as a concert pianist. All the building blocks, all the technique, tonal production, how to memorise, how to practice. We started off in a very methodical way because the first 5 years, from the age of 5 to 10, I was playing the piano purely for enjoyment. I was sight reading whatever music was in the house, whether it be a Simon and Garfunkel album, listening to any music that was on the radio at the time. So this was the first time where I actually learned how to practice. My technique was dreadful when I was the age of 10. I got in, I think, purely on my musical ability. It was really bad. I had very flat fingers, I wasn't curling my fingers properly, my posture was terrible. So Heather Say-Lipkin was, I think, a little bit nervous about taking me on because she thought there was going to be a lot of work ahead. But I have a determined streak in me, it's from my father, I think. He's quite determined, and I was really keen to take the plunge and work hard. It involved a lot of toing and froing to Manchester, and my parents were heavily involved. Heather always wanted one of my parents to be present at the lessons, and then when I went home to check my technique, that my fingers weren't wobbling, especially the third and fourth fingers. Looking back, it was all quite, didactic really, but I'm so glad that I did that.
Yes.
Ended in a lot of tears. At the end of each lesson, I would be crying my eyes out because I can't do this, Mum, I can't play, it's so difficult, I can't cope my fingers. It took many years, well, I'd say many years, probably 2 years from the age of 10 to 12 that I developed, and it developed quite quickly from that initial struggle.
So how did you develop your technique? Did you practice a lot of studies, or how did you develop it?
The first sets of exercises I played when I was 10, and I couldn't play any pieces when I started off at the Royal Northern, were the Oscar Berenger exercises. Yes. Are you familiar with those?
Yes, I didn't do this, but no,
yes. I didn't look at canon, and I really didn't play that many scales, but of course I learned how to play scales. Only about at the age of 10 I learned how to play chromatic scales properly, and to make sure that the thumb was going underneath and the hand was straight ahead, so hand positions and all those sorts of things. But Berenger's certainly helped to strengthen my finger technique, but as you know, technique isn't all about exercises. It's about musical development, so through learning the core repertoire, starting off with Bach, Preludes and Fugues. He's one of our greatest educators in people music, isn't he? So spending a lot of time learning Bach and classical repertoire. I remember in my notebook that Heather gave me, she first of all, one of the lessons wrote, she drew a picture of the Parthenon just to describe to me and to try and explain that music had a structure, like the architecture of a building. And I think that was a very good idea for a young boy to picture something as well as, instead of looking at the notes, to try and understand the form of music. So for example, the sonata form. So by the age of 10, 11, I was really learning how to think about structure in music and how to develop that. So that's all part of your technique. And also the visual element in music too, trying to use your imagination more than you play. And thinking about colours. To, one piece, my teacher said, imagine purple colour.
It's stuck in your mind.
Yes, I remember those things quite vividly. So all that is development of technique, and then through performances, through the school, the opportunities at the school, really helped to bring me up to a high level, on the same level as the really talented students at Cheetham's, because I was a little bit behind at the age of 10, 11. I mean, it all seems that is very young, but... I was going to say that is very young to be behind. When you won the competitions, I said about the Beethoven competition, the Leeds, how did this, it must have had a huge impact on your career. How did things change after that, do you think? Oh, dramatically. I'd already succeeded in the Young Musician of the Year. I won the piano section of that when I was 16, and that certainly gave me more opportunities to perform in public. But then I went to study in America at the Curtis Institute of Music, and I was then ready to go up to another level of my playing there, and entered the competitions in the middle of my bachelor degree, probably again a little bit early, but I was so keen to just to perform, really, to have more concerts, and that was the main reason for entering these competitions. It wasn't I want to win this, I want to do well, it was just I want to play in public, and that was my only way of performing in public. But it's certainly the Leeds, I suppose, more than the Beethoven, launched my career in this country for sure. And I wouldn't have a career if it weren't for the Leeds competition. It's such a prestigious competition, and there are so many pianists over the years. It's quite consistent over the years. The competitions have gone on to do well, and not necessarily the winners. I mean, I didn't win the competition, I came second, but I'm enormously grateful for that opportunity. And
I remember your performance.
The Beethoven competition I competed in earlier that year in May, and that was a very special experience to get to the final. I hadn't expected to get to the final. I mean, for both competitions, I went in to the competitions purely for experience, so I felt very fortunate to get through and do well in it. But the prize there was a Bösendorfer concert.
Wow.
So it's a great prize to win, and it's still there, and I I practice on that at home.
I love it.
It's a real joy to have.
So you teach here at the Royal College of Music, so do you advise your students to do competitions? Do you still feel they're very important, even today? Because we have a lot more competitions around now, I think, than say 20 or 30 years ago.
Yes, and I think the way a career develops has certainly changed as a result of programmes like the X Factor. Audiences and well, the musicians themselves, I think they feel a career can be made overnight, and that is highly unlikely. Only a very small percentage. You have to go through the hard graft of study.
Yes.
I am still studying as a musician. I'm still learning. Musicians, some of them feel that once you've succeeded in a competition, that's the end. You've attained the great heights in music, but not at all. It's only the beginning. And I say to my students, some of them are very keen on entering competitions for the reasons of, as I was saying before, exposing themselves to an audience, to have that opportunity to play in public. And some of them are less keen. They're quite nervous. Well, it's learning to accept disappointment.
I found
and the realisation that the jury, even though you may feel you played your best, might not like you, and that's a good learning experience for the future. I can't expect everyone to like my playing, and I accept that. And that's part of life's learning.
Yes, it's a difficult thing to accept, isn't it? But you learn that. Yeah. So which musicians do you think have inspired you the most over the years?
There are many musicians. First of all my teachers. We mentioned Heather Sadie-Lipkin, Eleanor Sokolov at the Curtis Institute, and Nina Milkina, who I worked with when I came back to London and studied with her all the way up to 2006.
Gosh.
So there were 3 women in my life as well as my wife. But also the musicians. I first played to Stephen Huff in my teens because he also studied with Heather Sadie-Lipkin and lived very close to me as I was growing up as a teenager. So he was the first professional musician as well as my teacher that I went to play to. And I learnt a lot from him. I learnt Rachmaninoff 3 with him. He helped me before I performed that the Young Musician of the Year. And I went to him several times. And I was amazed by his record collection. He always used to play all sorts of recordings of pianists I'd never heard of. And he was passionate about all things piano that inspired me as a teenager. Performers I went to here when I was young. I went to Royal Liverpool Phil a lot, to the concerts there, BBC Philharmonic in Manchester. Very lucky to have those 2 cities close by. And hearing, I remember George Bollett more than anything. His Liszt, performance of Liszt, Concerto No. 2. That certainly made a big impression on me. He's a grand master, and I remember his great warmth of tone. So in the early day, and also the recordings of Rubinstein, later on the recordings of Rachmaninoff, I came to hear. They're so amazing, aren't they? So special. And great clarity of textures as well.
Yes.
The pianist of today, Murray Pariah, I've been to play to a few years ago, and we played duets together.
That's great.
That's been it's a great honour, but also to be playing to him and learn from him as well. I love all his recordings, his Mozart, his Bach recordings as well. Great purity of tone.
So you've recorded all Mozart sonatas to great critical acclaim. I think that's probably amongst the most difficult repertoire. What attracts you to these works, do you think? Why did you want to record them all?
I recorded the Mozart sonatas on 2006, at the time of the anniversary. I thought that was a very apt time.
Yes.
And not only do I love the music of Mozart because it's so operatic and so lyrical, it's full of cantabile writing, and the right-hand melodies are just to die for. They're so beautiful.
Yes.
But
exposed.
Yes, very exposed. Yes. Yes. It's trying to not to be afraid of communicating that, which can be very awkward on a piano. We need a little bit more support. Well, we're more comfortable with a bit more left-hand support as a pianist, but with Mozart, no, it's much more exposed. But because I'd worked so much with Nina Milkina as well, she drew me closer to Mozart. Right. She was a great Mozartian in her day. Unfortunately, she's passed away now. I learned so much from her. I'd already had quite a lot of opportunities to play the piano concertos as a result of the Leeds competition. Not that I was put in a box, because concert pianists tend sometimes to be pigeonholed.
Yes.
Because I played an early Beethoven 1 in my competition.
That's right.
A lot of the concertos after the competition were Mozart.
I was going to ask about that actually.
But that was a choice that the classical repertoire. But it was a choice that I was delighted with and felt, well, at times a little bit uncomfortable with, because as you say, it's exposed on stage. Because the first proms, my debut at the proms was with Mozart K449 in the huge Royal Albert Hall, and I felt so small in this monumental place, and trying to communicate such a more delicate piece, very difficult to do.
But which other composers do you particularly enjoy playing, going away from the classical kind of era or period?
Moving on, well, I love the music of Chopin, Schumann especially.
Right.
I'm drawn to, probably because his music's so related to his personal life. It's almost like reading his diary. It's very intimate.
It is.
And we know from his diaries and his writings that it's so closely linked to his later wife Clara, because all the piano music was when he was in love, or before he got married to Clara Schumann. Yes, the early piano writing of Schumann for sure, and Brahms, following on from Schumann. There's so many. Rachmaninoff I love, and also contemporary music too. I've recorded all of the Samuel Barber's piano music.
Yes, I was going to mention that. That's quite a project.
Yes, because it's big, challenging repertoire to learn, especially his sonata, which is composed in the 1940s. I got to know Barber's music as a student at the Curtis Institute of Music, so learned all about him in his music.
So how do you devise your concert programmes? How do you put them together, and do you rotate them, or do you play different programmes all the time, or do you have some you tour with regularly? How do you come about your programmes?
I try and learn at least one new programme every year, and sometimes that's mixed. So during the season, I'll have about a variety of 3 programmes and maybe cross over with some repertoire that I've done before. And now as I'm getting older, I'm going back to repertoire I learnt as a student, but for the longest time, from my 20s to even to my mid-30s, I was learning all new repertoire, because the piano repertoire is immense. So for example, I've still not learned, I'd love to learn all the Beethoven sonatas, I've still not got there yet. One of these days, I'm about 3/4 of the way there.
Oh, you're going to do a whole cycle.
I'm not sure about a Beethoven cycle, it's very hard. Well, maybe one of these days. But I certainly enjoyed the Mozart cycle. I performed the Mozart sonatas in one go.
Have you? Yes.
Yes.
Did you do it over a few days?
Over a few days,
yes.
But it's not something I could do all the time.
No, well.
But programs are so fun to put together, and I try and think about themes. Recently, anniversaries. It works very well. Debussy's anniversary this year was of interest to me, to try and formulate music around him, and also the music that had inspired him to, the composers that had inspired him, from Bach to Chopin, and I thought about Bell-inspired pieces to bring Debussy together with Liszt, who he was inspired by.
Playing on the same programme.
Yes, so making connections, and then sometimes it can be subconscious. You don't realise that pieces are going to work, and they just work naturally in the programme.
Right. So you played at some fantastic venues all around the world. Which is your favourite, or which was your best musical memory?
There are lots of memories, and so many wonderful halls. I love in the UK. There are a handful that I love, and I have very happy memories of. The Royal Albert Hall, I think, has to be the most important. I mean, making my debut there at the proms, that is a very special memory. Even though I was pretty scared and very nervous before. But it was, yes, I think that if I had to choose one, it would be my debut there at the Royal Albert Hall. But Smaller venues, the Wigmore Hall is always a very special place to play because it's very intimate. You feel that connection with the audience.
Yes, yes.
But sometimes in a large hall, you can't really feel that. Abroad, a very special memory was playing the Rudolfinum in Prague. It's such a beautiful place to play, not only visually, but acoustics as well. I just thought that was a very vivid memory of that. Yes, and lots of other places really.
What have you got coming up though in 2013? I know you've got a Wigmore Hall concert quite soon.
Yes, that's the next concert coming up.
Tell us about that.
At the beginning of January. So I got to work over Christmas. Normally I have a quiet period of rest. So I have a few days off on Christmas Day, but I have to practice to prepare for this recital, which I'm really looking forward to. And this follows on from what I was saying earlier about Debussy. Debussy's anniversary was last year, but I'm linking in the programme that I played over the autumn and then incorporating some new repertoire, but they're all with composers who really created an orchestral sound at the piano.
Right, so what are you playing?
I'm starting off with Bach's Italian Concerto, and then the next set of pieces are of Brahms, his 16 waltzes that were originally written for piano duets, but Brahms transcribed for solo.
Yeah.
And then the end of his first half is Chopin's third scherzo in C sharp minor.
That's lovely, big piece.
And then the second half I'm playing three pieces inspired by bells: Liszt, Les Cloches de Genève, and Debussy, Bells Through the Leaves, and Rachmaninoff Veci Tableau, the C minor, opus 39. Then I'll end the programme with the Eroica variations.
Big piece.
It's a big programme.
It is a big programme.
Lots of energy and eating lots of bananas before I play. Conserving my energy.
That sounds wonderful. What does playing the piano mean to you?
Well, it's my life. I don't know. I don't think I could live without the piano. It's been part of me for such a long time. So that's it, really. It's a fundamental part of me. It's part of me, I think. An extension of my personality, and I feel totally comfortable performing. Probably more so than in conversation and speaking. I feel it's the best way I can communicate to people.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Leon.
Thank you.